So we're going to do a little creative exercise. And you can give it your own touch, give it your own like flavor. And you're going to create a character who is foolish and wise at the same time. You can write a very short story. You can write a poem. You can write a description. You can write bullet points, but write something about, it can be yourself. It can be a future version of yourself. It can be a random character, like complete imagination, fantasy, like no limits. A character who is foolish and wise. Can be feminine, masculine, anything in between. Can be an animal, a human being, a fairy, a dolphin, I don't care. Create a fun character for you who is foolish and wise. And tell us what this character is doing. What makes them foolish and at the same time wise. And you can go crazy. Like, so you embody the theme, right? You embody what we're talking about by creating this character. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, well then I would say we're going to start the 3 minutes of writing right now. All right, last couple of seconds. You can finish up your sentences. Okay. I would like you to make a little side note for yourself about while you were writing this, and as you just finished writing it, if you notice your inner critic as you write it, like a critical voice, and what that voice is telling you. Maybe it's not very loud. Maybe it's like really annoying. So whatever that voice is, like just become aware of it. I think it's also really part of, you know, this whole theme of being brave to create and also brave to share and having the courage to share with people. And that's really what you are practicing and what you're doing. And the inner critic will most of the time be part of it. Like every human being has an inner critic. And maybe you can write down like 2 or 3 words about how the inner critic sounds like. Like, for example, my inner critic sounds very strict and doubtful, and also at the same time kind of confused. That's my inner critic. And I can like hear that voice as I'm like writing things, but I really try to ignore the inner critic. And I think it's a really important aspect of being brave and this energy of the fool, to not listen to the inner critic, because the inner critic is the opposite of foolish. The inner critic is like usually a perfectionist. And perfectionism has nothing really to do with the fool, because the fool doesn't care about doing things perfect. So I'm going to just ask, is there someone who wants to start?
I can probably start. So I did write a lot of things. So, yeah.
That's nice. I'm curious to
hear. So, yeah, what I wrote down is basically a couple of things. When I thought about the foolish and the wise character at the same time, I thought about 2 things. I actually struggled, I have to be clear. I struggled with the question or the prompt and kind of trying to kind of get my head around actually defining what does this character look like and how it should kind of behave, what sort of characteristics they inhibit, all of this stuff. Started with thinking about a dog as a character. And I think dogs have lots of wisdom, but they also can be a bit very playful and foolish in terms of how they would kind of react to certain things, how they would kind of play and so on. Dogs are generally like playful animals. So yeah, I started with thinking about the dog or dogs in general. And then I actually thought about Steve Jobs for some reason, being the foolish and the wise. Because when you look at like Steve Jobs as a character, a lot of what he did in his early days have been classified as very foolish by most people. Although he probably was, I don't know, I usually say like 8, 9, 10 steps ahead of everyone else in terms of thinking. And that's why his foolishness or his ideas were being classed as foolish at the time. Also, they might have been ahead of their time or its time. So so he kind of inhibits both the foolishness and the wise, and eventually kind of the wisdom kind of, what's the word, prevailed is probably the right word, with some of his kind of latter kind of innovations and so on. So that's what I was thinking of. And then the inner critic was a bit confused in terms of trying to come up with a right answer to the question. And
Yeah.
so being very confused in terms of what's actually the right answer here. And that's why I think I came up with two answers.
That's actually very nice and interesting that you came up with two answers, and also that your inner critic thinks that there is a right answer, because I don't think there, at least it's not my intention, like there's no right or wrong here, right? So it's interesting it's really interesting to observe the inner critic, like really nice like lesson on the side, like a nice side note. I like that you came up with Steve Jobs. I think he's a really good example. And I think a lot of people who invented something new, like who are very innovative, are exactly that. They're foolish and wise at the same time. When you type it into ChatGPT, which I just did, it literally, the first person that comes up is Steve Jobs, and the second person is Lady Gaga, and the third person is Richard Branson, followed by Jim Carrey and Kanye West. So you can
interesting people on this list.
Yeah, and all very different people. Like they're all slightly different in what they do. Yeah. Thank you. Who wants to go next? I can go next, actually, if you want to. I don't always have to be the last.
No, I think Monica was trying, but I think she may be muted. I saw you the first time. I got you, Monica.
Oh, so you can't hear me. You can hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Yeah. Originally,
Okay,
the first
perfect.
time I saw you talking, I was like, oh, but I got you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So basically, I was writing about human being, about us. So I was comparing when somebody is watching some documentaries on the TV about any country, and let's say the country is even Mexico, you know, sometimes it has bad reputation because they say a lot of, you know, drug cartels and, you know, it's dangerous and stuff like this. And people are watching it or maybe getting bad news about it. And if I, let's say, wasn't full in a sense, and I wouldn't just get on the plane and go to Mexico and experience myself, I would never experience that Mexico is actually a beautiful country. So, you know, they can present us through TV like, okay, there is a food like this, there is a culture, there is I don't know, customs. But if we don't experience ourselves, we never know. We can't really smell the food through TV. We can't really, you know, see the culture, see the people, how warm it is. So it's basically we are getting wisdom from our experiences again. Not just,
Yes.
you know, if you're watching TV, you can't really get a wisdom as in you will get a wisdom when you experience it yourself. Or not even TV, not even TV, even like Instagram, social media, like what they feed us sometimes, you know, it's a lot of information, but we have to experience it ourselves.
Would you like to read out anything that you wrote down?
I also write about being street smart. So,
okay.
Hold on, because sometimes I can't even read my own writing. And then this, you can go ahead. I said something about being street smart because you can go to the school, but they don't teach you how is life on the street. As in, you know. Then I was basically writing about TV, what I already said. Okay, Fool is coming with new experiences, and that is why he's getting knowledge by he's getting knowledge by experiencing it on its own. Nobody taught him this, and that is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, getting experiences through your own life, not through somebody else's information or advice. Mm-hmm.
And inner critic will be pretty much like foolish. Like, what am I doing? What am I writing? You know,
Okay.
foolish. Like, yeah, what am I doing?
So your inner critic is judging your foolishness?
Not really judging. I would say a playful foolishness, like more like a joyful foolishness. Or
So
is
your
it not
your inner critic is joyful?
Can I
So
say it's joyful?
it's up to you, really. So the inner critic is the voice that criticizes you, for example, while you were writing or while you're reading it out to us. That's the inner critic.
So it has to be negative, you would say?
Yeah, otherwise it would be like an inner compliment. Then it's not a. The inner critic is usually defined as a voice that is making it rather difficult for you to be creative. And it's usually the voice that we kind of want to learn to allow to be there, but do it anyway. Like allow the inner critic to like ramble whatever that voice is saying, but say, I'm going to do this anyway.
Okay, maybe being shy.
Mm-hmm. So that's that is you, or that's the inner critic?
Inner critic.
Okay, so your inner critic is telling you you're too shy for this.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. That's
So
where we can put it like this.
thank you. Yeah, it's very interesting to hear all the different inner critics. Gerald, do you want to go next or should I go next?
No, I can go next.
Okay.
So the story that I came up with, and this is originally I was gonna have a story about a short film that I actually saw recently about a cat trying to take over the world, but he was able to find an artificial intelligent robot, and the artificial intelligent robot was able to understand the language of the cat, and so they had like this whole communication going on, and the AI robot was able to help the cat. Then while I was writing that, kind of my inner critic, you know, butted his nose in and was just like, hey, this is a interesting story, but that's not your story. Like what is your story, and what is your authentic response to the prompts, just organically creating it from self. So I switched it like midway while I was writing out basically someone else's story, and that's not my story, to my own original story. And simply what came to mind was just a monk that's sitting by a lake and meditating by the lake. And all of a sudden the monk basically started to dance, got up and started to dance on top of the water in the center of the lake, while the monk was just in full flow, deep meditative state, and just flowing with his eyes closed. But as soon as he opened his eyes and realized that he's in the center of the lake, because he didn't know at first, he didn't know that he thought he just got up and started dancing, but didn't realize he's dancing on top of water. But he opened his eyes and then he let fear take in. And then I guess that was the foolish nature to allow like fear to take in, and he fell within the water.
Ooh, wow, what an interesting turn in the
Yeah,
end.
so it like broke the concentration and broke the purity of things. And yeah, so that's a synopsis of what I wrote. And then my inner critic was, well, that's the story, but my inner critic was basically telling me to stay in alignment of my truth, not someone else's truth. Because like I was saying earlier, that was me. I was about to start writing out someone else's story that's already been created, but that's not my truth. At least that's how I see it. And another component to my inner critic was questioning, is this the best that I can do, in the sense of just being present within a moment, you know, like giving my all within each moment. That inner critic is saying, are you giving 100% or are you giving like 75, So that's basically it. That's what I got.
Thank you. It sounds like your inner critic is compared to like my own, for example, is actually giving you advice to do it better.
Mhm.
My own is just, my own inner critic just sucks. Like my inner critic is like, yeah, doubtful, confused, and very strict. And yours seems to be more like, hey, you can do better. Like you can do your own thing. Like that's actually not too bad of a critic to have, I feel like.
Yeah, he's more of a friend, honestly.
Yeah, that's very nice. Thank you for sharing this. I like your dancing monk.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.